So in today's video, I'm going to be comparing two liquid CPU coolers made by Corsair. The older H80i compared against the newer H80i GT. Supposedly the GT has a little bit better cooling, but the reason why I kind of wanted to upgrade and make a comparison was because the GT has a little bit newer design. So for example, there's a few physical differences. The radiator has a little bit better design, supposedly for better cooling, and I'll show you later in the video how they compared. But on the older H80, it had the rubber tubing, and then the newer one has a little bit longer and a little bit nicer tubing here. It's like the braided style, so I wanted that to match my new PC build, which I'm going to be upgrading to like individually sleeved power cables and things like that. So I wanted all the cabling inside to kind of look a little bit nicer. There's also differences in pump size. You can see the GT is actually quite a bit bigger, and I'll show you that comparison later in the video, as well as like the performance differences. I'm not showing the fans here because I use the upgraded SP120, Corsair SP120 fans, which are quieter and perform the same, if not slightly better, and also you get the LEDs, which make it look a lot nicer in the case. Now both H80 GT and the H80i can be used with these sockets. The Intel LGA 1150, 55, 56, 1366, and the 2011, including version 3, 2011-3 I believe it's called, and then AMD AM2, AM3, FM1, and FM2. And those are the processors it's compatible with. You will also need an available USB 2.0 header if you want to use the Corsair Link software. At the end of the video, I'll show you a link of my new PC build, just you can kind of see where I went with kind of like a whole black and red theme. So I kind of wanted to keep everything red, so that's why I used the red LED fans, the SP120s. I upgraded it from the uglier stock fans that come with these. And to just kind of go over a couple other of the physical differences, like I say, the radiator fin design is a little bit different, a little bit tighter in the newer GT. There's a lot more surface area, so that probably gives it a little bit better cooling advantage. And some of the wiring coming out of the pump blocks here are a little bit different. So as you can see, in the older block, it required not only the 3-pin motherboard power connector, but the SATA power connector as well, whereas the newer one only requires one 3-pin connector on the motherboard. And then also on the older model, you had the Y cable that can plug into the top, and then these go to power the two fans that go on either side of the radiator. You can remove this if you don't want to power the fans directly from the CPU pump. I prefer to plug my fans directly into the motherboard and control it with my BIOS, and then set the fan speeds based on the temperature within the BIOS rather than using this, and also it gets rid of a cable. But unfortunately in the newer model, the fan cable here that goes to power both of the fans is just kind of built into the block. You can't really remove it, so I'm gonna have to end up hiding and tucking this away, but not a big deal. They both come out of the same spot, so it should be easy enough. So that's really kind of the major physical differences, aside from the backing plate. On this one is square, and I'll show you that here in this shot. So you can see one's square, and then one has the round copper plate on the bigger pump on the newer GT. And then the location of the wires is a little different. So on the newer GT, they come out of the right hand side, and on the older one, the power cable comes out of the top. The USB, the Corsair Link data cable, plugs into slightly different spots as well. So like on the older one here, it goes into the left hand side, which I don't really use because I don't use the Corsair data link. You may want to use it if you get it, but I kind of don't like how the USB cable looks sticking out. It's kind of a thick cable, and like I say, I just control the fans on my motherboard anyway. But on the newer GT, you have the USB connection kind of on the bottom. You'll also notice the cables here twist in the CPU block, so it gives you a little bit more, you know, it's just a little bit better design. Here it's a little bit, it's just kind of stuck in there. You can't really move it too much, so sometimes when you move it, you have a little bit of fear of breaking. But in any event, both of these are really sturdy and really nice liquid coolers. So I like to go with the 120mm, just the single fan, where, you know, Corsair makes obviously the 100i and the 100i GT. I don't really like that huge. I have a kind of a smaller case, so I don't really need that kind of crazy big radiator. I'd just rather use the smaller style radiator. So anyways, these are the two I have to compare, and I'm gonna get them installed and show you how they look in case you guys were deciding on one to use in your system.
So here's how the stock H80i sounds. Camera's about a couple feet away from the cooler. I'm just going to start it up, and you can kind of hear how loud the fans are. They're going to start up really high, and then they're going to go down to their you know, their lowest set levels, and you can just kind of hear how loud they are. So that's it. That's as quiet as I can get the fans when they're plugged into the Corsair block directly.
You can see the gray fins on there. It's just not as nice as the SP120 fans, definitely not, and obviously way louder. Now the cooling on it actually works a little bit better with the stock fans because they're spinning at the higher speeds, but the trade-off is the noise there. So you can see, I'll show you the fan, it stays around 41 degrees. I would say it's about on average 5 to 6 degrees higher using the SP120 fans, but then you get a huge reduction in noise. So to me, that's worth the trade-off. I don't care if my CPU runs a little bit hotter. It's not a big deal to me, 5 degrees at idle. So here's the H80i installed along with 2 Corsair SP120 red LED fans, and I think it looks a whole lot better than the standard, as you saw earlier, than the standard just gray fan in there. It looks kind of dumb, and plus it's a lot quieter, so I really like the look of it.
Then I'll let you hear how much quieter these fans are when I turn it on.
So that's about as quiet as I could expect any kind of CPU cooler to be. Pretty happy with that noise level. Now next I'm going to show you compare this to the H80i GT installed, so you just kind of can see how they look in the case and decide for yourself which one kind of looks better.
So I got the H80i GT installed, and this is kind of what it looks like. You can see the tubing is a lot more tubing to deal with here. My case is kind of small, old Cooler Master. Storm Scout is the name of the case. It's a smaller case. I prefer smaller cases. So if you had a larger tower, you might actually like these longer tubes. It gives you a lot more room to work. You could mount this on the top or move it around wherever you wanted to mount it if you had a taller case and things like that. It's a bigger block. It's nice, definitely, but I don't think I like these really long cables, even though they are braided. I wish the H80i was braided with the shorter cables, then I would really like it. And I don't really like this silver plate here as much as I thought I would in the case. I mean, I have nothing else really silver except for some letterings, or gray. I guess it's more gray. So if that was just all black, it'd be a little bit better. And plus, this is a little bit, just a few millimeters wider, so it takes up a little bit more room, but not really too noticeable unless you're kind of super anal like I am with my case. But overall, definitely not a bad cooler. I didn't notice anything difference in the performance-wise. I really just don't like this extra tubing, which is my main gripe with it. And then I kind of liked the smaller, cooler block on the original H80 because it's glossy and it's a little bit smaller, and it matches all the kind of gunmetal finish, as you can see, as you saw from some of the other clips when I had it installed. But this is definitely a nice CPU cooler. I like the nice lettering here compared to the H80i big logo. I wish that was smaller. It's just trade-offs here. I don't think either one of them's perfect. It just kind of comes down to your personal preference. Like I said, there wasn't any performance difference using these SP120 fans.
So here I'll just show you kind of the different temp readings I got. The first up is the H80i, and you can see the fans here. I set them, they basically are running on the lowest possible percentage in my BIOS. So they run about in the about 1,000 RPMs, and here you can see the CPU temp's about 46. This is basically idle, and just at room temperature here, 78 degrees. You can see that the CPU pretty much runs in the mid 40s, 45, 46, 47 degrees more or less. So that's the H80i. Now we compare that to the H80i GT. My CPU temps at idle at room temperature is more or less the same, and with the same basic fan speeds as well, 1,000 to 1,100 RPMs. Now these are obviously the fan speeds spin up the hotter the CPU temp gets. Of course, run in the high 30s, and then the overall CPU temp here is in the mid 40s again, 45, 46. So if anything, there's 1-2 degrees at most difference. And then I ran these under Intel stress testing to just test the CPU temp differences are. And first up is the H80i. Here you see at 100% CPU usage, I'm running, the fan speeds go up to about 1,300 RPMs, and the CPU temps are in the low 50s, with the cores being right around the same temps. So for the H80i GT here, again, 100% CPU load using the Intel stress test utility. The CPU temps at 100% load. The fan speeds are slightly lower for some reason. Well, that's because I set my fan curve to be over 50 degrees is when the RPMs kick up another few 10 or 20%. I can't remember exactly. But you see the CPU temps here. It was about a 1 or 2 degrees temperature, 1 or 2 degrees Celsius cooler. you know, at 100% load. So a little bit more effective cooling on the GT, slightly better cooling under 100% load. So to me, it basically comes down to aesthetics and kind of which CPU cooler you think looks better or whatever is going to fit better in your case. Or, you know, if you want to save $10, you just get the older H80i. The GT is $10 more.
But that's it, guys, on that. So if you guys are looking for a cooler, either one of these will do. I think it just comes down to those things I mentioned and kind of personal preference on what you like.
So here's the, I got the H80i back installed into the system, and now I figured out you can change the LED with the Corsair Link software without having to have the cable, USB cable permanently attached. I changed it to like a baby blue color to kind of represent like the liquid cooling. So it's kind of cool. I don't know if the camera's picking it up very well, but yeah, so in case you don't want to have that USB cable constantly connected in there and showing, you can just hook it up to your USB 2.0 header, change it in the Corsair Link software, and then remove it, and it will stick. The color will stick, so that's kind of nice. You can also pulse that color, so it will pulse the color and then slowly fade in and out, which is kind of cool too. But I just like the constant color. But you can see here, I mean, it looks a lot cleaner. I definitely prefer it over the GT, even in spite of the rubber tubing here. But you can see the length is a lot shorter here, so it's just a lot cleaner look. I feel like. Now I did notice that when I upgraded, not upgraded, but since I had to reapply the thermal paste, besides the paste that came stock with the cooler, once I wiped that clean and used the Arctic Silver paste, it went down a couple degrees, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, I would love to know what you guys think looks better to you, the H80 or the H80i GT, down in the comment section below. And if you give a thumbs up, that also would be greatly appreciated. And as always, thanks a lot, guys, for watching, and you all take care.